the golden shadow are the gifts and capacities and strengths within ourselves that we deny, that we hide in order to belong, fit in, make our way, survive. Because if we really showed up as our full, powerful selves, magical, powerful selves, there might be some people who don't like that.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. And I would love to welcome Justin Taylor. And he is an Akashic Record consultant, and I am thrilled to have him here. So thank you, Justin, for joining me.
It's a thrill. It's a delight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about the Akashic Records and the experience Justin has with them, and how we all channel information differently, even though it's under that umbrella of the Akashic field. But Justin has had the privilege of being exposed to the golden shadow. And the golden shadow isn't something that we're all aware of. I think this is specifically one of Justin's gifts and one of the things that he was given access to due to who he is and how he uses the Akashic Records. So I'm excited to talk about it because this is something that I'm not familiar with. So thank you again for being here and joining me. So just can you give us kind of a little bit of history about when you started doing the Akashic Records, how this all happened for you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thrilled to share about this. So it was during the pandemic. I was consulting record readers, consultants myself, to ask questions about my career. I'm a writer. I'm a meditation teacher. And, the pandemic was a big pause, and it was a great opportunity and space to kind of explore things a little deeper. And I had some friends who also consulted, Akashic Record consultants. So it started there. And after doing a few of these consultations, I got really excited to have the ability to open my records myself. And so I asked a friend who was training, who his teacher was, and that was Wendy Sewall, who's been on the show. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I got into her classes, and it was very clear from the first class with her that I had a channel. There was just a lot of images and information that was coming in, and I at first really struggled to accept it, really struggled to believe that it was from something beyond me. I'm a writer. I was so used to being like, oh, I just make things up. It's my imagination. It's not receiving or channeling. And that was my excuse to her for a long time. And she was very clear, oh, no, you are receiving. Just get used to it. and then very quickly invited me to start doing client consultations. And that's where I really started to believe and understand that this information was not coming from me, because I would see things about a client situation, circumstances that I couldn't make up. And so that was very powerful. And also the overwhelming feeling in the records of support, of love, of enthusiasm for me and for my unique expression. It was like I had discovered my own like pep rally crew or something. and that also felt so authentic. So I was like, well, if that feels so authentic, then this information that they're giving is also got to be from that same feeling, that same place of true support and love. And I got hired at Kripalu as a consultant there after a while, and started to teach about the records there and teach meditation there. And that really helped me understand, okay, this is something that is very strong in me.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the Golden Shadow, and around that time was when the record started to talk to me about this idea of the Golden Shadow. I was in a lot of client records, and they would bring this term up a lot in client sessions, and I was not clear on what they were talking about. In fact, they were my nickname they give me in the records is Golden. They call me Golden in the records, and I didn't understand that. I loved it. I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
and and so I started to ask questions about this, and came to understand that the golden shadow are the gifts and capacities and strengths within ourselves that we deny, that we hide in order to belong, fit in, make our way, survive. Because if we really showed up as our full, powerful selves, magical, powerful selves, there might be some people who don't like that. And sometimes they're our parents and our teachers and our peers. And so we learn not to access these things. And my channel being the number one strength or capacity in my golden shadow. And well, not the number one, but one of the number ones. Um, and and then from there, I started to share about this more, and I now have a whole client coaching program called the Golden Path, based in the Golden Shadow, and exploring that with people. Um, and then I left Kerpal after a while and started my own private consultancy. So that's sort of where I am today. I would also add that a large part of my strength in my channel was because I'm a writer and was very, very used to just sort of getting out of my own way, quieting down, and receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having a long practice, long history of doing that, I uh, was essentially channeling. I just called it writing. And plays, poems were often received, and I just called it writing. And then at the same time, I have a whole history of meditation, and since my early 20s practicing, and then eventually teaching, and that also really grounded me and strengthened my channel.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like someone just passed me a skateboard and suddenly I could do like a half pipe out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was a part of my life. I just didn't call it reading the records. And I wasn't necessarily reading the records because I wasn't using the formal prayer that I think is necessary for the records to open to the mind, or for the mind to open to the records. I would say it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's you brought up some really great points, and I have people ask all the time, how do I connect to my guides? And the answer typically 99% of the time is getting away from the mind. Quiet the mind, and when you're receiving information, be able to push the mind away and receive. So those are good tidbits to recognize, because I don't think a lot of times people don't understand or recognize when they are channeling information in their creative space. When they're writing stories and this information just starts coming to them and they don't analyze it, they just let it flow. And so thank you for pointing that out. It's important.
It's so important.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that, we live our everyday lives and we have information that's shown to us, but we don't recognize when it's being shown to us. And that creative process is always a good sign to start recognizing, well, I don't know where this came from, but here we are. So yeah, that's important. I do want everybody to know that I do have my Akashic Records open, and Justin has his open as well. We have a tendency to float in and out of that information, and Justin he may get quiet whenever he's receiving information. So I just want everybody to understand if there's a little quiet moment, it's because Dustin is receiving messages, and we want to allow him to do that so we can hear what his guides have to say, or his masters. So let's go into a little bit more detail, because I really kind of want to know more about how you discovered you just gave us just a little brief over just a short story about how the golden shadow came to you, but I would like a little bit more about that. Were you like opening your own records and receiving your own information, or how exactly did you understand or start really being able to differentiate from just information and then from the golden shadow information?
Mm. The records would refer to the golden shadow in client sessions. They would say things like, there is a gift in your golden shadow that you can reclaim at this time. And it would give the client some instructions on how to retrieve that gift from the unconsciousness that it had faded into, and embody it. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't know exactly what they meant. I just was sharing what I was hearing. And then in my own records started to interrogate. Please say more about what this term is, or show me the golden shadow. And oh my gosh, I loved that. I loved when they would show that to me, because shadow work, up until that point for me, I had always kind of, no problem, associated with like eating your vegetables, right? Shadow work being like uh, the parts of ourselves that we also deny, but that cause us trouble, cause us mischief, that get us into hot water, and that we don't feel so great about later. Um, and shadow work is often about making friends with these sides of ourselves, and 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 maybe even like unburdening some of the things that they think they need to do for us to be happy or safe. It's very beautiful, important work. And so in my mind, up until that point, the shadow was always full of these, unwanted sides of myself. And so, go into that with when I'm feeling strong or feeling the need, but mostly don't go into that.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, after many years of meditation and growth on my own part, I had come to know my shadow side somewhat. And uh, there was always this feeling, sort of an intuition, a memory, that there's more to it than just the parts that get me in trouble. Um, and so when my record started to talk about it, I was like, oh, now we're getting into this intuition I have about the parts of ourselves that are dormant, that are waiting to be awoken, or activated, that might elevate or upgrade our lives, upgrade the way we live our day, upgrade our capacities. So the conversation with the records was really a lot about that. In the golden shadow are gifts and talents that we might have embodied in another life. So I've had past lives. I know this as a performer. I've had a past life as a singer, an opera singer in Asia. So it wouldn't be opera singing, but a form of that in Asia. And so in my golden shadow is singing. And also during the pandemic, I discovered singing and songwriting, and it was this whole other side of myself I really did not know I had. My father was a singer. He died during the pandemic, not from COVID, but something else. And I inherited a lot of his instruments. And I've always had a love of music and singing, but not much like experience or practice with it. And because of this space the pandemic created, I was able to explore that and also kind of feel closer to my dad and move into some grief. And so I started to play a little bit his instruments and write songs and sing. And I discovered that I have a talent for singing that
Mm.
I really did not know was there. I mean, I had sung before and I had had some singing training, but I didn't really consider myself having a talent for it. But when I moved into that grief, which opened me up quite a bit,
Mm.
uh, I, I kind of fell in love with singing and started to give concerts um, and write songs, and so now it's something I do every day. Um, has really opened me up, really softened me, who's more of a head person. I sort of operate from the headspace. It's really helped me move kind of more down into the soft parts of me, the soft body, the heart, and
Mm.
uh, and so I really credit the records and the exploration of this golden shadow with that singing path that I'm on.
Mhm.
Not without it's not without crunchy stuff. It's not like oh, I got into the golden shadow and now I don't have stage fright or now.
Yeah. The basic everything, everyday thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I think that you're touching on something that's really important for us who's on the spiritual journey and wanting to kind of work through finding this place of peace and contentment, and that is the shadow side.
Yeah,
And, I think probably most of us, a lot of us have already heard about shadow work and looking into these areas that are uncomfortable. Um, Shadow work may be something that is, that was created from childhood that made you feel insignificant. And you have to look into, you don't have to, excuse me, that was the wrong word to say. It's to do the shadow work, it's that point of having to face what makes us uncomfortable, what makes us feel small, insignificant, all of those things that cause discomfort, I think, is or makes you feel less than, I guess would be a good way to say it. And so, what I'm understanding that you're saying is that by being able to kind of weed through those shadowy areas that we have, on the other side is this place of seeing the significance of who we are.
yeah.
Is that right? Did I interpret that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
That is one way we get into the golden
Okay.
is to become friends with the parts of ourselves that have been hurt, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
feel diminished, that feel like they must hide now, and and when those parts hide, they hide the strengths and the gifts and the magic that they naturally expressed as well. So that's one way to get into uh, those dormant gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are others. It's not the only path. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, give me some other examples.
So one is literally just to open up one's records and ask,
That's
"What's
the
in,
easiest way.
what's in my golden shadow?
Yeah.
What is masked or hidden in my golden self that uh, is able to come online now, that is able to be embodied and owned now? How can I go about that?" That's one way. Another, like I mentioned, past lives often have golden qualities that aren't
Mm-hmm.
expressed in this life. So if one has the capacity to witness a past life, if one has that capacity, like the meditations that take one there, or to work with a past life therapist is another way. A lot of people assume a past life therapy is about bad things, like healing bad things that happened. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can also be a way to retrieve or remember the great gifts that are in the soul that
Mm-hmm.
are not being expressed in this life.
Mm-hmm.
The records are saying about 10% of our gifts and capacities are actually being embodied, usually, sometimes even less. And that we, in this human body, in this human body mind, there is a capacity for so much more,
Mm-hmm.
so much more. It's like right now we can play like 3 notes, but honestly, we could play the whole 88 keys of the piano
Mm-hmm.
um, when we're ready.
Yeah.
When we're ready, and so yes, so past life work, the Akashic records, um, or if one doesn't have any of that, prayer. Prayer is a beautiful way to access these capacities. Pray to whatever power you would like to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
What are my golden qualities? What's in my golden shadow? Please show me.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need record keepers necessarily to be shown. If one
Mm-hmm.
has guides that one works with, one has angels, or just God or the universe. Uh, this is not something that needs to stay hidden behind a cloak of shame, or a cloak of the darker elements that we usually work with
Yeah.
in shadow work.
Yeah.
It is really ours. It's ourself. That's what we're
Yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's significant for people to understand that, our mind plays these games with us. And, we have this thing that seems to, um, what I'm seeing is a magnet. And it's like anything that's negative, like the positive is the magnet.
Yeah.
Can't say the word magnet. And, and it's pulling everything that's negative. And we have a tendency to hold on to that negative and forget that we can let that go and stand in the positive, stand in our strengths, give ourselves that understanding that we are this golden light. And usually the things that we see as the darker side of who we are illusions.
Yeah.
That they generally are not fact anyway. It's something that, some story that we created.
Yeah.
And so being able to, again, I keep seeing, I'm seeing like this forest that is, it's all dark. And, like I'm a little rabbit and I'm hopping through that forest, the dark side, to get to this meadow that's this beautiful light. And we all have the ability to do that. The forest is not the end of the road. We can get through it if we can recognize that it's a possibility. And so being able to share this information, I think, is important for people to recognize that we can move towards this place of golden light. And we don't have to stay in the dark, dingy forest. And I'm seeing the fairy tale type, situation, that forest, the haunted forest or whatever. But so why do you think that it's important for each of us to understand what the golden shadow is?
It's a way to remember our real self. Like I said earlier, my records sometimes refer to me as golden. And when I asked about why, one of the reasons they said it was because the golden, which remains unconscious, which we can call golden shadow, um, is really about reclaiming all of me.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned to me earlier about your work in the records is about breaking open things that constrain, breaking open structures that limit. And when they call me golden, it's they're reminding me that I am, we are so much bigger than the stories we tell about ourselves.
Yeah.
We are in fact that golden light in which that story happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that light can't be diminished. It can't be denuded of its gifts and capacities. It is divine. It is truly this miraculous power that we are. And so to explore the golden shadow is really to return to that nature, return to that golden nature that we are. And when we know that, it's so much more doable. It's so much easier to be with those parts of us that we would call the shadow, that feel diminished, that feel unsafe, that want to do things for safety and security and happiness that uh, we don't like,
Yeah.
getting us in trouble. So the uh, the golden in us, which is really our true nature,
Mm-hmm.
has nothing but love and compassion and patience for anything in us that is still in the dark.
Yeah.
So
Well, I love that. I love the description of just understanding it's the truth of who we are,
yeah,
and being able to connect and honor who we truly are. And, this is where we're moving to. And, where this energy is that's shifting and changing, and, why we're struggling so much with our mind's thoughts and these stories, and we're pushing up against seeing and feeling that truth of who we are, the divine, the divinity that every one of us has within us. And I think it's interesting that, we have a tendency to forget that we all have souls.
yeah,
And I always see this. It's always so funny to me that we as humans are fascinated with near death experiences,
mm-hmm.
and we can when our body expires, temporarily expires, and we watch and want to hear the story about the soul leaving the body and going to this divine place, this divine experience, and we always want to hear what happens outside of us.
Yeah,
We always want to know about this place that our soul goes to.
yeah,
And then and then when it comes back, our body's revived. Excuse me. And the soul comes back within this container. Then all of a sudden it's like everything turns off again. And we go back to our mind's thoughts of who we are as human beings. And we forget that, oh my gosh, I have this beautiful energy that's within me that knows every aspect of me.
mm-hmm.
That beautiful golden divine light that is within me, all of the little trinkets, all the nuggets of gold that I've experienced, that my mind has put behind the door.
Yeah.
It's all within me. Every bit of it's within me. So it makes sense. we just have to be able to. I always see crack the egg and open the egg to see what's inside, and that, to me, that is who we are, and what we are is that golden divine being, and being able to. I always think it's fascinating. What if each one of us could go back to past life and pick that thing that was the most significant, that would allow me to feel my value, and be able to hold on to that, such as that gift of being a singer.
Yeah.
And then being able to bring it forward in this life and be able to see that this is who I am. This is an aspect of my soul. It's an experience that I had, and we're bringing it forward.
Yeah.
Wish we could all do that. So, Justin, let's spread that idea. I like that.
Yeah.
So again, one of the questions that I had, and we may have answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do we recognize our golden shadow?
Usually it's when, golden gifts that are still in shadow, we recognize that when we start to embody something that normally we haven't embodied before, that gives us that feeling of magic, of levity, of soul, yes, soul enthusiasm. Um, that's when those gifts are moving from the unconscious into embodiment, into being expressed now. And so that's one way to recognize. Another is to ask yourself, what am I really afraid to do? What really intimidates me in life? Maybe it's intimacy is really intimidating, really being vulnerable, one-on-one with people. That usually to me is a sign that there's a gift for intimacy that's in the golden shadow, that is, it just needs an invitation and needs to be activated. And parts of the mind have decided that intimacy is this unsafe space, and so puts fear around it. But once that's dealt with or understood, there's a gift for intimacy that is unique to the person that can come online, a unique expression of intimacy. And other folks, like my example of around singing, I used to be very afraid to share my voice through singing. And when I went through that process I described earlier with my father's death, and then seeing into these other lives, it wasn't just the life in Asia. There was another life in Norway. I was a Norse woman who sang. I've had many lives as a chanting. I was really able to understand that this is something that my soul really needs. That my soul, it's almost hard to say needs. It's something that it does. It's sort of like a golden gift is so innate in us that we can't not do it. It's like the wind can't help but blow through a tree. The soul can't help but express the way it does. And so when we come across things we're really intimidated to do, and B, things we can't help but do, that just seem natural to us, even if they might even be behind resistance and fear, those are golden gifts. Those are golden gifts. And then, like I said earlier, we can also recognize it when we feel that kind of soul yes, that full body yes to something that maybe we haven't done before or tried before. And this happened to me when I started doing the records. It just felt so in alignment, and yet I had never done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the chance. So how do we access our golden shadow and move the gifts out of the shadow and bring them to the forefront?
Great question. So I have a program I do with some clients called Golden Path, and this is the very question we ask: how do we identify what's in the golden shadow, and how can we move that out? And it's unique to everybody. It's case by case. In general, my record keepers are sharing with me right now, actually. In general, there is an element of grace to moving things out of the golden shadow. We all have that part of the mind that loves a how-to and a to-do list and give me the 1, 2, 3 step. And when it comes to our divine gifts, it's not like following a recipe and taking making a batch of brownies exactly. Yeah. There's an element of grace. So when they mentioned prayer earlier, that's in alignment with this idea that these golden gifts are not for the mind to have. We don't want to hand the keys to the kingdom to the ego,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't belong to the ego. They belong to the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And we are truly not the ego. The ego is an illusion that we experience, that the soul experiences, but it is not in fact what or who we are. We are the soul, or the golden.
Yeah.
And the gifts are for our true self to embody and share. So uh, using prayer is, to me, and they're also saying, the most efficient way to activating and discovering what's in our golden shadow. Dear universe, dear sacred divine, please show me what's in my golden shadow today. Thank you so much for helping activate what are my gifts today, and sharing those with whoever comes into contact with it.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude, they're saying, is a really big way to activate what's in the golden shadow, to be thankful even before something happens, being saying thank you to the universe for sharing its gifts through this body mind.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing they want to say too, is that the gifts in the golden shadow aren't really personal, which is sort of why it can feel like, I don't have that gift. That's not me. Singing
Mm-hmm.
was a bit like that, or especially the Akashic Records. That using my channel was something that felt alien at first,
Yeah.
and but it was impersonal to me. It was something that it was true in my soul. Yet the soul isn't necessarily this separated out personal thing. It is one with the coherent totality. The soul is
Yeah.
a wave in an ocean, and so the gift of accessing the records came as sort of a symbol of how these golden gifts come out, and 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 get embodied. It was literally like, I can do what? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the point they're making here is that there's often sometimes this impersonal feeling
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, it's not necessarily for me, but it's coming through me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the difference between the common idea of shadow work and the golden shadow?
Well, as we were saying earlier, the common idea of shadow work is, uh, there is this side of me that is not so conscious, that can cause a lot of suffering in my life, that can cause mayhem, that can stir up things to get attention. And there are parts of me that feel, like you were mentioning earlier, hurt, diminished, disempowered, um, depressed, anxious, controlling, super angry. Basically, there are parts of us that just did not get regulated,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, these are feelings that we can all have, right? But when we're really, really young and we don't get mirrored and regulated, those, they kind of stay in a holding pattern, and that tends to be what we call the shadow. And so shadow work is about coming back for those elements of our experience, those parts of ourselves that are in that holding pattern, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding them and helping them unburden these beliefs, responsibilities, stories that keep them there. Um, and the working with the golden shadow is a step beyond that. We don't necessarily need to work with those what we might call traumatized parts of ourselves to work with the golden. Sometimes you might need to bring something online from our golden self to be able to then go and lovingly care for the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? It could be a capacity for unconditional love, our capacity for tenderness that is in the unconscious still, that we're going to go awaken that and bring that forward so then we can care for the parts of ourselves that still need it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a one comes first and then the other. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you explained that, because it's kind of what I was perceiving. Okay, you got to go through the dark forest before you get to the other side. But what you're saying is that you can jump over the forest and get into the golden and then go back through the forest if you need to.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Because the
But,
golden is what we are.
yeah.
And the dark forest is like a territory inside of what we are.
Yeah.
But the golden is the whole map. It's the whole
Mm-hmm.
terrain. It's just there is one part of it that has been darkened.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to pass through it to get to the golden. We can turn around and go backwards, and there it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad you made that specific, because, as you were talking, what I was seeing and what I was feeling is that by being able to hold on to the truth of who we are, our strengths, these things that we may not have ever been exposed to due to circumstances in our lives. So we've never had to really been put in the position to tap into what these hidden gifts are.
Yeah.
And so if we got to that point of seeing those and truly embodying it, those things that we're calling the shadows, it may even just dissolve. And it's not even the point of having to face it and work through it, which I think, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. The record keepers are very much in agreement with what you just said. That the point of this life, they're saying it this way, the point of this life isn't necessarily to heal the shadow. The point of this life is to embody all of ourself. Mm-hmm. That is the point. And so what's in the golden shadow is all the rest of ourself that is yet to come and dance out here in the 3D, mm-hmm. that is waiting to download here and do it. Yeah. One other element of the golden that they want to also point at here is it's sometimes referred to as crystalline DNA. You ever heard that term?
Oh, yeah.
Light DNA, crystalline DNA. It's, again, parts of our makeup, our blueprint that have yet to be embodied or activated. And a lot of times they get activated through divine support, divine help. So celestial light, celestial energy can often be a part of activating that part of ourselves, which allows more of the soul to download into the body mind. They're saying like a very small percent of our soul actually comes into Earth, usually. Most of us are between like 5 and 15% of actual soul is here. And as you were mentioning earlier, mind activity that is very ego focused, very concerned with the little details of me and myself and what's going to happen to me and me, prevent that download. They keep it out, which is not wrong. It's not like we have to now download all of us to really be happy. That's not what they're saying here. But the point of embodiment, of having a human body mind, is really to let it all express, let it all be here. And we're coming into a time, they're saying, where the earth is calling on these human body minds to start doing that work, to start downloading more of the golden, more of what's yet to be activated, more of the soul, so that we can meet the moment we're in, where we're going through a major transformation.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of go down a rabbit hole. You mentioned the crystalline.
Yeah.
And, we don't hear a whole lot about that, the crystalline body.
Yeah.
So give us a real quick rundown on what that is. Can you do that?
Sure. Well, they're going to help me here. They're going to.
And that's what I was asking for. Yes. I want them. I want their description of what they're referring to when they're talking about the crystalline.
The crystalline is the memory of the soul body. It is the memory of the soul body. We are here on Earth in these earthy bodies that vibrate at a very gross level. Gross meaning heavier.
Yeah.
Than what the soul is used to when it's out of the body. You mentioned earlier near-death experiences, when people have this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm going back into that memory of what I really am, this pure vibration. And then they go back into the body after that, and they're like, oh, I'm just this meat sack now. I'm just an earthy thing that has to like figure out how to get to the bathroom.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, and that memory of what we really are can get clouded. And so the crystalline body, the crystalline DNA is the vibration of the soul. It is the memory of that coming online. So, and they're saying the light body or light DNA is synonymous term. So people who use that term, we are saying the same thing right now. Mm-hmm. When they say the golden, that's referring to something very similar as well. Golden's an even higher vibration, they're saying, a more refined vibration, much closer to Akasha, which is the most refined vibration of manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to jump on that because the Akashic field vibration is so extremely powerful that people degrade it.
Yeah.
And they put it as very earth oriented. And that it's on earth, so it's of a lower vibration. And so I do want to jump on that to make a loving, caring point about how the vibration of the Akashic field is of a magnitude that we cannot comprehend. And that's what they're saying to me. And so I do want to have people understand that. So when we're talking about the crystalline body, again, what I've seen and what I've been told, basically what my guides constantly tell me is that we're getting thinner. And so like the thickness of the skin is becoming more translucent.
Yes.
And we're becoming more of these crystalline beings. And so I think that that's kind of what I wanted to elaborate on. Do you have something to jump in and about us actually physically becoming these crystalline beings?
Yes, they want to tweak a little bit what's happening the way you described it. They want to tweak the words a little bit to say that we're not becoming something other than what we already are.
Correct.
It's more like it's a transparency to what we really are that is coming online for some of us at this time. And so activating the crystalline is activating the truer vibration of ourself that isn't emburdened or darkened, right? Mm-hmm. That is luminous. So when you see somebody and you're like, wow, there's just so much light coming out of them, they're not more luminous than anyone else. They just have less layers to that light that they're carrying. This is a really energetic thing. They want to be clear here. There is no diet for this. No exercise routine.
Yeah, good. Thank you for making that clear. I love that.
This is really about returning to the mind, returning the mind to the heart.
Absolutely.
Mind to the heart, because it is the heart's vibration that really holds the memory of the light body. And this physical body becomes more like an anchor or a harbor for that soul that we are, the light body, to have an experience here in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a container for it. It is not a limitation for it. It is simply just a harbor or an anchor through which it can experience. Um, and when we have that relationship with the body mind, it becomes our ally. It's not to be discarded because, oh, it's darkening me. No, 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 no. It is a great ally through which the light can come here and experience this incredible 3D Earth journey.
Mm-hmm.
And they really, 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 really want to emphasize this term enjoyment.
Yeah.
They're saying the prevailing idea that we sort of hold about Earth as souls who are growing is that Earth is a school,
Mm-hmm.
and is like the toughest school there is. It's the place where the most growth happens, and that's all correct. However, it is not the point. The point is to enjoy.
Yes.
The point
Yeah.
is to enjoy yourself
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah.
And so some things get in the way of enjoyment. So growth is about getting some of those things that get in the way of enjoyment, like
Mm-hmm.
cleared.
Yeah.
But it's not this like they're saying prison sentence.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you should even use this term enjoyment because I was doing some work with myself last week, as a matter of fact, and I even wrote it down. You know, they are. I have been getting these messages for quite some time about just get happy.
Yeah.
We're in this place about, gosh, can't you just laugh? Can't you just see the enjoyment? You know, and it's the thing about learning how to be in the present moment, which meditation and quieting the mind and being present and being able to see the wonder of all, being able to see the joy. The second that you can stop having those little stories running through your head and actually be present and being able to see the laughter and the joy of life itself. Yeah. And what they use a term as the institution of joy.
Yes.
That we need to create within ourselves the institution of joy. Yeah. And what a silly concept of being able to allow ourselves to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and the way that we're so conditioned, it's like we're conditioned to not be happy, to find all the faults, to find all the pain and to stay in it and to waller in it. And, you know, I have these memories of conversations where you sit down. I've sat down numerous times with friends for lunch or dinner and said, so how's everything going? Well, let's figure out the pain and the sorrow so I can feel sorry for you and show you my pity. Oh, I'm sorry that this happened to you. And, you know, it's like we look for these things that create that energy. Yeah. Instead of being able to sit down with somebody and say, hey, what great happened to you today? Yeah. You know, if we could actually create this thing of joy instead of focusing on woe is me, then that helps. What I'm hearing my guides are saying, it helps thin that barrier between consciousness and what our mind creates to bring that light body forward again, you know, thinning that so that you can illuminate. Yeah. So I did go down a little bit of a wrong path here, but I think it's important. And I think it's something that people really need to understand because, you know, I do hear about the crystalline body a lot and that becoming a crystalline being. But you don't see a whole lot about people talking about it. It's not even that much when you Google it. There's not even a whole lot, you know, online about it. So thank you for sharing that information. So jumping back to the golden shadow, what are the common collective golden shadows?
That's a beautiful question. There are the personal shadows that we have, our personal gifts, and then which are actually impersonal in the end, as I was describing, but we have the unique capacity to express them in a unique way. Like, for example, for me with singing. Then there are collective uh, strengths and gifts that that we collectively have chosen to ignore and collectively have chosen to uh, put in the subconscious. And uh, they're saying sort of what you were just saying earlier about a capacity for joy, causeless joy is a collective gift that we sometimes activate. Um, they're showing me images of Mardi Gras, like people's ability to just once once they have the excuse to party and celebrate, uh, is a memory of that gift, right? You can live a life of great struggles, but the ability to enjoy and party and celebrate doesn't go away.
Mhm.
That is an innate thing that we all have. What else? The feeling of family. So the prevailing sort of global culture is one of mostly separation,
Yeah.
and uh, I have my plot of land with my house, with my stuff, and my people, and I must protect that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and hidden behind that is the memory of our oneness,
Mm.
that we are actually all one golden light, one crystalline vibration with many, 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 many bodies, many, many
Mhm.
body minds.
Mhm.
So uh, the oneness, the simple love that we feel when we're with family, what we consider family, uh, that is in the golden shadow. Our
Mhm.
golden shadow. Um, and there's more. I mean, they're showing me things about genius, capacity for coming together to do, collectively create, collectively ideate, to bring down information even from the records as a collective
Mhm.
is dormant in our DNA.
Mhm.
And to solve all the problems we have, to feed all the hungry, to clothe all the naked, like
Yeah.
we all have that capacity.
Yep. We do.
And it is simply because they're saying we as a collective have chosen to collect around, like, basically core facsimiles of the golden,
Mhm.
and to chase those things and to call that happiness, like success, money,
Yeah.
uh, the perfect relationship, etc. These external things that they're showing me this image of, like, bugs that collect around a street lamp at night.
Mhm.
It's like all the bugs have confused the street lamp for daylight,
Oh.
and most of us have a mind that has been conditioned to be like that, to collect around these poor stand-ins for the true light. So much social media is about this,
Yeah.
and uh, but as soon as day comes, like even the first ray of morning sunlight, it just obliterates the need for a street lamp,
Yeah.
right? The bugs are
Yeah.
like, oh wait,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
and 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 so the collective golden shadow is sort of like that. It's like this extraordinarily luminous, enormous source
Yeah.
that just blows the need for all this stuff into uselessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's a beautiful way to end this conversation, and in the sense of the golden light,
Yeah.
and being able to access it and recognize that it's within us and that we're all connected, and it's that universalness of who we all are. So, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure anytime, Lisa.
Okay. Well, we will see you guys next time. Thank you.